Hi, everyone. I've decided to start a new series because I get a lot of emails and I get a lot of comments on my videos, and I tend to write very long responses to many of them. So I'm going to take email responses that I've sent to people or comments that I've written on YouTube and anonymize them if people have written me something that they wouldn't want publicized. So what I'm going to do is to read through one of the emails that I wrote recently over the holidays, and then maybe as I'm going through, elaborate on something if it seems like it would be a relevant place to expand. That being said, let's give this a shot. I received an email from someone, and the question that they wrote was, what does one do about the poison of self-pity? For example, being alone on Christmas and family feeling sorry for me. So what I said was, that's a good question about self-pity. Largely, it comes back to that second arrow again, wanting things to be different than they are, and then making ourselves miserable because life is currently not the way we would like for it to be. And I'll take a moment to pause there, just in case there's anybody who hasn't heard the Buddhist term for the second arrow or the second dart. Suffering is contingent upon making a story out of something. If you got shot in the leg with an arrow, the first arrow, you can't help. It hurts. You get shot with an arrow, you're going to have some pain. But the second arrow is the one which actually causes the suffering. Pain can be there, but suffering is not mandatory. So the suffering is all of the stories about, why did this happen to me? This hurts so bad. Oh my God, now I'm going to get an infection and lose my leg. I have a wedding next week. Whatever the thing is, it brings us back to, I don't want this. And that is the root of all of our suffering. Getting back to what I wrote to this person. So when you're feeling bad that you're alone on Christmas, come down to the facts of what's happening. There's a concept that the 24th or 25th of December is a time when everyone should be getting together with friends and family, that you should have a tree in the house and drink eggnog and eat a lot of food, etc. But that's just a cultural convention. For billions of people around the world, today or tomorrow is no different from any other day. Again, I wrote this on Christmas Eve. The problem is that we create a story that says, I am supposed to be spending this time with friends and family. I like parties and gifts. And right now, I should be doing these things. You've created in your mind an alternate universe. And now you're pretending that both are true and possible at the same time, and comparing the current reality to how it could be otherwise. But it can't be, because it's not. It seems like such a silly thing to say that, of course, it can't be happening because it's not. But that's not our normal experience. We tend to create a whole life out of the possibility of what could be here right now or what should have been in the past. Anytime that you're going through your mind, going past back through things that mistakes that you've made in the past, things that you wish you could take back, things that you shouldn't have said, all of that, recognize that not a single bit of that is happening now, and that you literally cannot go back and change the events that happened in the past. Or if you're rehearsing things that are going to happen in the future or worrying about things that are going to happen in the future, recognize that right now, not a single one of those are happening, and that you are creating 100% of your suffering worrying about those things that are going to happen in the future. And because they have not happened, you are suffering completely voluntarily, completely unnecessarily. Going back to the email. Notice also if there are secondary thoughts, criticizing yourself for not being good enough in some way to have friends or family like everyone else has. See if there's a sting at the idea of your own brokenness and how it's connected to your aloneness. But is it really? Come back to the body and recognize that any of those thoughts are just old self-berating thoughts. Let them be and come back into the present moment. It's something that we suggest all the time, coming back into the present moment, because that is where all of these stories just fall away, because none of that stuff is happening right now. The raw experience of existence, of all of your sensory phenomenon, is completely devoid of all of the suffering, all of the stories and drama and trauma and everything that we put into our supposed story of our life, it's just not here. Back to the email. The only thing that makes this moment less than satisfactory is the idea that it could be otherwise. At this moment, for instance, I'm sick. I'm not now, but I was when I wrote this. I had a fever all night. We were planning to visit a friend tomorrow, but I canceled because I don't want to pass it on to anyone. There would have been disappointment if I thought that going there was an actual possibility, but it's not. The reality is that I have a fever, and nothing about the current experience of being sick is particularly unbearable on its own. There's tiredness, some achy sensations in the hip, a stuffed nose. But if I create the story that one is supposed to be healthy at Christmas, to enjoy it to its fullest, and Christmas can only be enjoyed by visiting friends and family, then of course suffering would occur. But that's not how this Christmas is, and that's perfectly fine. Side note on that, same thing happened a week later with our wedding. We got married on New Year's Eve. I tested positive for COVID and the flu just after Christmas, the day after Christmas. Pernilla was tested positive with COVID and had the flu. And so what was going to be a half virtual, half live event went 99% virtual. But we were okay with that. We just flowed with what happened, and there was no argument about this could have been different. It couldn't. We had COVID. We couldn't have people in the house. Case closed. It was very simple. We didn't create an alternate storyline where our wedding would have been so much different had this happened. Didn't happen. We had a really wonderful wedding, and it was amazing having everybody on Zoom and the few people that were here to witness it and my friend to officiate. That was all really, really lovely. And we had an amazing day, just as it was. We don't have to color it with all of the things that could have happened but didn't. Um, we could have come down with Ebola, and then the wedding might not have happened at all. Um, there are so many negative scenarios that we could have created, but we tend not to do that. We don't look at, um, well, I could have lost a leg in a, Christmas tree accident. I, could have had a home invasion and whatever. Like, we don't come up with all of the negative scenarios that make what actually happened seem better. We come up with all of the better scenarios to prove how unsatisfactory our current reality is. So looking at that negativity bias can go a long way towards being much more present and content with what is happening right now. Going back to the email, this also comes back to what we were talking about when we discussed lack at the end of the session. The idea of lack is that something is missing, but look around you right now. What is missing from your experience? Is it not absolutely whole and complete exactly as it is? And this is such a fundamental part of our being. And this was such a huge opening and awakening for me when I was doing fourth fetter work. Um, I had serious issues with lack. This idea that I don't have enough time, I don't have enough money, I don't have enough freedom, I don't have enough whatever. And it was only when I was doing some of the inquiry, actually walking around the block, it wasn't seated inquiry because I really like having inquiry woven into daily life. I was walking around the block and I was inquiring into it, and it just suddenly smacked me right across the head that the whole idea of lack is such an absurd concept. You cannot possibly be lacking anything at any moment because what is not here is just not here. What is the only way to have an idea that you're lacking something is that you have a thought about something that could be here but isn't. And so your lack is taking what is actually here in its complete fullness, simply as it is, comparing it to what it would be like if this other hypothetical thing was in your vicinity, and then saying, well, my reality sucks because that thing isn't really here. But that thing was never here. You didn't need that thing for the current moment to be perfectly as it is. It's only this comparing action that we do that creates so much unnecessary suffering for ourselves. So I suggest for everybody, anytime that you feel like you don't have enough of something, look at what you actually have and try to figure out how you are making that decision, that distinction that I don't have enough of this. My life would be so much better if I had more of X, whatever it is. And then look at how you came up with that. Right now, feel into the body, look around your experience, recognize that everything is completely, perfectly here. There is not a gap where anything else is missing. There is just this. It's that simple. And then allow that thought of needing something else to just go the way of every other thought that you've ever had. Going back to the message again, it takes a thought that something, friends, family, a shiny new Tesla, little green aliens, should be there but aren't to create that feeling of lack. Otherwise, there is no way to know that anything could be any different from the way it is. Thoughts about how things could be are the only thing standing between contentment and misery. I'll repeat that last line because I think it's really important. Thoughts about how things could be are the only thing standing between contentment and misery. It's what I was just talking about with lack, and it's what we talk about all the time with the comparing our experience to something else and then wanting that something else rather than what's here, and then causing ourselves to suffer because it's not here, but it was just a figment of your imagination. So let all of that go. Let the mind do what it wants to do. Let the thoughts run as they want to run, but don't take them seriously. Just come back to what it feels like in the body. Come back to the raw experiences of your senses over and over again until it's so obvious that what is happening in the mind is just mind noise and it has nothing to do with your external reality. Going back to the email. And did I understand correctly that you have family who feel sorry for you being alone? If so, again, this touches back on what we discussed where no one can make you feel anything you don't already feel. If they're saying that they're sorry you're alone and that you shouldn't be, then if you in your heart of hearts really did want to be alone, then those words would roll right off because you see that they're speaking from their own opinions that people should never be alone at Christmas. If what they say is uncomfortable for you, then you too believe that to be true, whether or not it's explicitly, consciously stated. Um, so just a little bit of explanation on that. Again, a person can never say anything to you that actually makes you feel a certain way. They cannot give you love. They cannot give you anger. They cannot give you sadness. You internally create love and anger and sadness based on how you interpret what you see and hear from other people. So if somebody says to you that, I love your hair, and you just had your hair done and you're particularly proud of it, thank you. That feels really good. You get this nice, joyous, warm feeling in you because they said something nice to you. If you just went and got a haircut and it was like the worst haircut of your life and you were absolutely mortified to be walking around in public with this hair and somebody says, nice hair, you are going to feel such shame and indignation that that person is criticizing you and you just want to crawl into a hole. It was the exact same words that the person said. How you take those words has everything to do with your experience. So when somebody says something to you, note what comes up in reaction to it, whether you agree with what the person says and you get nice warm feelings, or whether you disagree and you feel really defensive. Recognize that all of that is happening because you already have a belief about whatever it is that they're saying. If they make a comment about your weight or your appearance or your work productivity or your intelligence or anything else, if it hurts, if it elicits a reaction from you, it's because internally you still believe that thing to be true. And them pointing it out to you is what really stings. And if it has no effect, if somebody can say something to you and it just bounces right off like you're made of rubber, then it's not a problem for you. Going back to the message. So basically recognize what is here in the moment. See if it's worthy of contentment, exactly as it is. Notice if you're comparing it again to some other fantasy of what could be, and if that is what is causing the suffering. And then feel into the body and see what physical discomfort seems to be arising along with the ideas of how things could be. And stay with them with love, detaching the sensations from the thoughts and seeing if there's really anything to get upset about. Keep up the great work. It's a perfect opportunity for inquiry, so well done making use of it. Merry Christmas in whichever way it shows up for you. So that was my response back to that person. I'm hoping that other people will find it helpful. I think I brought up a few things in there which might be relevant well outside of the holiday season. Um, and I do plan to do more of these because I have many, 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 many pages of emails and comments that I've written to people that I think might be useful given a little bit more context. And like I said, I will be anonymizing everything, so no one has to worry that I will be telling their deepest, darkest secrets or, using names or anything like that. So please feel free to continue sending me emails and comments, and I really love responding. And it's such a joy to have that interaction, even, slowly, virtually. In print. But it's nice to also be able to make something where other people can hopefully benefit from it as well. So thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you on this or an inquiry or one of our meetup groups sometime soon. Um, just as a little side note, I do have more sessions open. I opened up some more slots in January, February, and March. I don't remember if I've opened up yet, but I've definitely opened more time in January and February for one-to-one sessions. So you can check in the whatever you call that section down there. I'll have a link to my Calendly, and if you're interested in one-to-ones, you can go on and just book a session. Um, Love to talk to you. So, all right, thank you so much again, and much love. I forgot where I was. Oh.